Hi, Matrix. I hope you guys are keeping well and that you are preparing and studying for the big exams coming up. My name is Nicole Erasmus, and I am back again to do lessons based on Term 3's work. Now, in Term 3, we cover 4 units. These units are relatively easy in the sense that they are units that we have covered in previous years, so the concepts are not so new to you, as well as they are a little bit shorter. Now, for that reason, I've decided to include 2 units in one lesson, meaning that I will have 2 lessons based on Term 3's work. I'm going to start with corporate social responsibility and corporate social investment, as well as do human rights, inclusivity, and environmental issues today. But before I start, please just remember that I structure these slides and I do this lesson based on the revised 2020 exam guidelines. So if you see that there are things in your books that I don't discuss or I don't go through in these lessons, that would be the reason why. And then also please remember that this lesson, these slides are purely an overview of what you need to know and what's important. I cannot include all of the information, all of the possible answers in this lesson. There is just not enough time. So it's very important for you to go back to your textbooks, to your additional notes, to old exam papers, and really go and study the work. Right, let's get started. We're going to start with corporate social responsibility and corporate social investment. And as you saw on the previous slides, we refer to it as CSR and CSI. But before we start, we need to know what it is, right? So corporate social responsibility can be defined as it's a concept that says that every business has an obligation to give back to society and look after the environment. Now, the word I used there was obligation. Right? So it is the responsibility that a business has. It is what is expected, right? So what is expected of the business is that they run an ethical business based on the King's Code and keeping in mind society and environmental needs. Okay, corporate social investment is the actual time, money, effort, and resources put into giving back to society. Okay, so you can see the difference. One is what is expected, one is what it should be and how we should be running our business, what our obligation is to society and the environment, and the other one is the actual doing and giving back to society. If they do ask you, it is in the exam guidelines that they can ask you to elaborate on the meaning. I have put down the meanings here for you, so let's quickly go through that. Corporate social responsibility is an ethical viewpoint that says every individual, but specifically the organization, we're looking at the business now, that an organization has an obligation to benefit society as a whole, right? The responsibility of every individual and organization to contribute towards the well-being of the community and the environment in which they live. And corporate social responsibility is the way the business conducts its operations ethically and morally regarding the use of human, physical, and financial resources. Okay, so that's corporate social responsibility. If we look at the meaning of corporate social investment here, it refers to the investment of corporate funds, either assets and the primary purpose of achieving social outcomes. So in other words, giving back. Taking financial assets, using your human resource assets to actually give back to society. Money that the business budgets to provide solutions to social problems within the community from which they draw their workers or where they make or sell their products or services, and the projects that are not part of your normal business activities and are designed to benefit the community. Okay. So if they do ask you to elaborate on the meaning, you will obviously need to have a detailed definition ready. Okay, so next. The link between corporate social responsibility and the triple bottom line. Now, it's very important for you to know what the triple bottom line is. So please know what it stands for. You can choose whether you want to know it as the 3 Ps or SEEC, right? The 3 or the triple bottom line includes your profit or your economic. It includes your people or your social, and it includes your planet or your environment. Now, depending on how you want to study it, the 3 Ps, profit, people, and planet, or if you want to study it, SEE, as I always note, economic, social, or environment. Okay, now, how can we link the triple bottom line with corporate social responsibility. Remember, corporate social responsibility is the obligation, what we expect it to do as a business. And these are the three parties that we are expected to look after. So let's first start by looking at the profit or the economic. Now, basically, a business needs to make a profit in order to be able to give back to the community, right? If a business is not functioning correctly and doesn't make money, how are they going to help other people if they can't even help themselves? So a business has to run ethically, not taking advantage of anybody, bring in profit, and then use some of that profit to assist the communities and the environment. So if you look here, I've just included a couple of things here. For the economic, the triple bottom line means that the business should not only focus on high prices, but should also invest CSI in CSI projects. So you should also give back to these projects, right? The business should not make a profit at the expense of the community. So it's basically just, again, that obligation to run your business ethically, not take advantage of people by charging high prices and just taking advantage of people. And then when you do make a profit, you should be taking some of that profit and filtering it back into the communities by giving back to the communities. Okay, if we look at people or the social aspect, the businesses basically need to make sure that the communities in which they operate, they need to look out for the best interest of that society. Now, one of the ways of doing that is also to look after your human resource. In other words, the people that actually work for you. Remember, they do work for you and they help you bring in a profit, but where do they sleep at night? In their communities. So by looking after the employees, the people in your business, you're also contributing positively and you're meeting the obligation of looking after the community members as well. Okay, as it states here, the business operation should not have a negative impact or exploit people, whether they be your employees, customers, or members of the community. Businesses should invest in sustainable community programs or projects that will benefit and uplift the communities. Now look at that word, sustainable. Okay, meaning it must last. You must put in projects that will have a long-term positive effect. And you must continue to help the communities. You can't help one year and then just stop helping the next year, and so on. So sustainable community projects. And you should be improving the lifestyle and quality of your employees, so the lives of your employees. The last one is your planet or your environment. Now, this is the one that gets, I feel, maybe this is more on a personal note, I feel like the environment gets the least amount of attention when it comes to giving back to the environment. But in actual fact, it's probably one of the most important aspects, because without environments, we do not breathe, we are not alive. We will not be focused on making profit or helping community members if we do not have an environment to live in. So how should businesses meet the obligation of giving back and protecting the environment? They should not exhaust resources or harm the environment for any profit purpose. You know, going and building on a nature conservation for your business, or dumping your waste in a river, for example. These are things that you would do to harm the environment. We should rather, even if it costs a little bit more money, go more eco-friendly and help the environment out. And they must support energy efficient and eco-friendly product or production methods. Like I said, even though it's a little bit more expensive, at least that way we are looking at sustaining our environment for future generations. Another thing that businesses can do is try to recycle or reuse within the business itself, just in order to not waste our resources that we use from our environment. So this is the triple bottom line. Definitely in your exam guidelines, a possible question, please, if they do ask this question, it's important for you to list what you are talking about. So either the 3 Ps or SEE, right? You list it, and then you explain what the business can do, what their obligation is, and how they should be running their business under that specific part. Okay, so I just want to cancel that one. Okay, now there are certain questions that that can be asked in the exams. Now, specifically regarding 2 parties. They can ask how the business can contribute towards the well-being of either the community, or they like to ask, how can the business contribute towards the well-being of your employees? So normally, if they do touch on the corporate social responsibility chapter, normally one of the two are asked. So basically what they are asking here is, sorry, I just wanted to get rid of that arrow. So basically what they are asking here is, they are saying to you, what are the things that you can do in the business to look after the employees, both financially, physically, and emotionally. It's not always about giving people money. It's also about supporting the employees, giving the employees something that will make their lives a little bit easier. So basically what they're doing here is they are mentioning a couple of fringe benefits, extra things, and remember that from the first term, fringe benefits, that you can give to the employees to make them happier and look after their well-being. I've included a couple of examples here. I just took the first 6. There are plenty in the textbooks, and if you look at old memos as well, you'll see there's lots. I included here fair wages and salaries to the workers based on the nature of their work. So you've got to look at the type of job that they do, how dangerous it is, and make sure you pay them correctly. You must make sure that the working conditions are safe and acceptable, and that you have facilities available to make the lives of the employees just a little bit more bearable, a little bit easier. Make sure you pay fair bonuses, provide the employees participation in decision making, specifically decision making that will affect the employees, right? If you're choosing a new uniform for the employees to wear, give them a say in that uniform. They're the ones that have to wear it. You could also do things like offer support programs for employees who are affected with HIV and AIDS. You could make childcare facilities available for your employees on the premises. Other things that you could do, you could give bursaries to the employees' children to go and study. Small things that you can do in the business that you make like I said, you look after the well-being of your employees. Right. Trying to get used to these Anna notes. Okay. Right. Sorry about that. I'm still getting used to the system. How can the business contribute towards the well-being of the community? Again, same thing. We're looking at different ways in which a business can assist the community in any way, not always necessarily monetary values, but small things that they can do to support the community so that you uplift the well-being of that community. The business should improve the general quality of life in the community. For example, they've given you investing in the education or investing in corporate social investment programs, which is structured around the needs of the community themselves. You can ensure that the products they supply will not be harmful to the customer or the environment, but specifically the community now, that you don't give out products that can hurt the community. Refrain from engaging in illegal or harmful practices, such as employing children who are under the age of 15. That would obviously be hurting the environment. The community. Make ethically correct business decisions, right? Not engage in unfair or misleading advertising is the example that I came up with there. You could donate money towards projects, community projects, so CSI projects, which are, like I said, specifically designed to uplift the community. Provide recreational and sports facilities. There are so many different examples. Like I said, I just took the top 6. There are many. If you go to your old memos specifically, you will see that there are a lot of different options that you can use. Right. Now, when it comes to corporate social responsibility and corporate social investment, they can also ask, what can a business do to deal with specific socioeconomic issues? Now, those of you who've been doing business studies for many years will remember we've done socioeconomic issues. We covered them in grade 10 in detail, and we touched on them in grade 11 as well. Now, the nice thing in matric is there is only 3 socioeconomic issues that you need to be able to do regarding this work. So when it comes to identifying a socioeconomic issue, as well as recommending ways that the business can deal with these socioeconomic issues. There are only 3 socioeconomic issues that you have to be able to answer those questions on. So the first one is HIV and AIDS, the second one is unemployment, and then the third one is poverty. And because unemployment and poverty have such a close connection, right? If you have not got a job, you will not earn a salary. If you don't earn a salary, you're going to live in poverty, right? There's a connection between the two of those. Now, because that connection is so close, you will see that a lot of things overlap when it comes to strategies to deal with unemployment, as well as then strategies to deal with poverty. Okay, so what could possibly happen in a question, according to the exam guidelines, and I have seen it also in previous years, is they can give you a case study where they say, Nicholas cannot afford to satisfy his basic needs. And then the next question will be, identify the socioeconomic issue being discussed in the scenario, in the case study. You would then say poverty. If you can't afford to pay or satisfy your basic needs, then it means that you're living in poverty, right? The following question, the follow-on question that normally comes is, recommend ways that the business could deal with this issue that you've just identified in the previous question. So please, guys, that's why I've put it here for you like this, be able to identify it, but then also be able to come up with ways that the business can help. Again, there are many different things that the business can do to contribute or to help with this issue. I've just taken the first 5 in this case, but please go back to your books. You'll see there's a lot of different options. Okay, let's look at HIV and AIDS first. You could develop counseling programs for infected employees. You could counsel people working for you who have HIV and AIDS. You could conduct workshops on HIV and AIDS programs. You could roll out antiretroviral treatment programs, right, for your infected employees. So you could have a program where you maybe provide these antiretrovirals, or a certain percentage of the cost, or you understand there's certain things that you can do. Develop strategies to deal with the stigma and discrimination to make sure that you have the type of business that does not discriminate against people based on the HIV and AIDS status, that you nurture a culture of respect, right, and no discrimination in your business. You can also participate in HIV and AIDS prevention programs and implement them in the community. So these are just some of the things that businesses can do to help assist with this socioeconomic issue. Right, if we look at strategies to deal with, sorry, I just want to keep something. If we look at strategies to deal with unemployment, right, the best way to deal with unemployment is to give people skills, to have better education, right? The better the education and the more skills somebody has, the better the chances that they can get a better job, they can find a job, or even they could start their own business and then employ other people, other unemployed people to work for them. So you could do things as a business like provide skills development programs through learnerships, taking on people from the community, teaching them a skill, giving them a qualification while they're working for you at the same time. You could offer bursaries to the communities to improve the level of education. You could create jobs for members of the community. Instead of hiring somebody out of university, why not take somebody from the community who's struggling to find a job and give them a chance to build up skills and to be able to start their own business one day and then employ other people who are unemployed. So create jobs and then take people from the community. Instead of, if you have to pave the driveway in front of your business, why then go for a construction company that you've used for many years? Why not go and employ 2 or 3 people who are willing and eager to work from the communities and ask them to do the paving? You could provide entrepreneurial programs that promote self-employment. Right? The lovely thing, the great thing about these entrepreneurial programs is when somebody who had no job, who couldn't find a job, starts their own business, they are also then in a position where they can help other people. They can support small businesses that could then expand and also create more employment opportunities. And like I said, there are many different options. All you have to do is just go and look at in your textbooks or at old memos and you will see. Okay, the last one is strategies to deal with poverty, and like I said, this is very, very similar to the unemployment, because when you're unemployed, you're obviously going to live in poverty. So things that the business can do, you can invest in young starting SMEs. Stands for small medium enterprises. And that could be the business's competitors, they can be buyers, they can be suppliers. But investing in these small medium enterprises means that they'll be able to expand and they'll be able to take on more people. The more people that get hired, the less people live in poverty. You can attract the best employees by being socially responsible and offering the best volunteering programs. You can support poverty alleviation programs that are offered by the government. So in other words, even if your businesses are not, they don't have a program in and of themselves running to help poverty alleviation, you can find a government program or a non-government organization program. They are focused on dealing with poverty, and you can give them money to do that. Donate money and food parcels to local NGOs specifically dealing with poverty. Okay. Now that was the socioeconomic issue. So please take note. We've done elaborating on the meaning of your corporate social responsibility, corporate social investment. We looked at the triple bottom line and how it is linked to corporate social responsibility. Then we looked at what the business can do to look after the well-being of the community. What can they do to look after the well-being of the employees? And then we looked at the socio-economic issues, those three issues, and how the businesses can help deal with those problems. Okay, now we're getting to the impact of corporate social responsibility and corporate social investment on the business as well as the community. Now, this question is very popular. It often gets asked. You're not quite sure if they're going to ask you for the impact, if they're going to ask you for positive impact, negative impact, and you're also not sure if they're going to ask you for the business or for the community. So it is a lot of stuff that you have to study. But because it's so important, you need to put extra effort into this. This stuff has been around for a long time. I know we dealt with it specifically in grade 10, when you did this in grade 10. So it's nothing new. It's the same theory. You just got to remember it. Okay, so we're looking at the impact of corporate social responsibility, specifically the positive impact. Remember, if you asked for the impact, they are asking you for advantages or disadvantages. So you can choose whether you want to have just advantages, just disadvantages, or some advantages, some disadvantages. That's up to you. But if they ask you for the positive impact of corporate social responsibility on the business, then you know they're only asking you for advantages. Okay, another thing that they could possibly trick you with, or not trick you with, but sometimes you get a little bit confused and flustered when you're in that exam situation and you're not quite sure, is sometimes instead of saying the positive impact of CSR on the business, they will say positive impact of CSR and then give you the business's name. So they're not specifying the business, but by giving you the business's name, ABC Traders, right? They are saying for the business, right? So just keep your eye out for that, just in case. Okay, so let's just look at some of the advantages. Again, please go back to your books. There are plenty out of the first 6. You may attract experienced employees and increase the pool of skilled laborers, which could increase your productivity. The nice thing about this is the better your image, the more you seem to care and give back to the communities, the more people are going to actually want to come and work for you. So you could have your pick of the litter, as they say, and you could choose the employees who are best suited for your workplace. The positive or improved image as a business looks after the employees, conducts itself in a responsible way. So again, the employees, they are going to see that this business really, really cares about their employees, and they care about the community, and they care about giving back, and they run their business in an ethical way. And you're going to have a positive image. And from that positive image, you're going to draw in more employees, or better, the best qualified employees. You're going to draw in more customers, which ultimately will mean more profitability for you. And you can also bring in more investors, which also means more money for the business. If we look at bullet number 3 here, the business may have a competitive advantage resulting in good publicity and an improved reputation. So there is really good that comes out of this for the business as well. It promotes customer loyalty, resulting in more sales. Why customer loyalty? Because again, the community sees, you know what, this business really cares about us. So they support us, we need to support them back. CSR projects may be used as a marketing strategy to promote their products. You're not going to go into a community and give a food parcel or a, I don't know, stationery parcel or any parcel out and just say this is from Anonymous, this is from Father Christmas. No, you're going to have sponsored by, and you're going to go there with flags, and everybody's going to know which business is contributing all of these things. So by doing that, you're getting your name out there. You can use it as an advertising tool. And then the last one that I included here, it promotes teamwork within the business. You work together to help the community out. It's not always about the profit and doing the job. You're also doing some good here. And trust me, when it comes down to that and people having to pull together to better society or to give back to the environment or protect the environment, people really pull together. Okay, so this is just some of the examples of the advantages that the CSI have on the business. If we look at the disadvantages of CSI or CSR on the business, the negative things, okay, if they ask just for the disadvantages, they will say, describe the negative impact of CSR on the businesses. If we look here, again, I just took this first 6. Small and medium enterprises find it difficult to implement CSR programs. Why? Because they are limited when it comes to staff or human resources. They don't have as much money to be able to give back. They don't have as much time because the people who are working there need to focus on the core business. So small and medium enterprises actually find it very difficult to structure their own in-house CSI programs. So what small and medium enterprises might do is they will more than likely give monetary donations or donate what they can from the business to other organizations to deal with it. So just because you're a small and medium enterprise doesn't mean that you don't have to give back and you don't have to implement corporate social responsibility. It just means that you might find that your contribution is a little bit smaller. Okay, the next one there, I have to write detailed reports must be drawn up, and that can be an administrative burden as well as, sorry, I just want to get my foot here, as well as it can be very time consuming. And remember, when you are wasting, not wasting, this is a terrible word, but when you are spending time on things that are not necessarily going to bring you profit, things that are not part of your core business, a lot of people feel like now I've got to write reports and waste time and administrative burden, and I've got to give back, and it can cause people to become very negative. Okay, social involvement is funded from the business's profit, which could be used to benefit your customers by reducing the price. Okay, so you've got to take, in a lot of cases, some of the profit from the business in order to give back to communities, in order to protect the environment or upgrade your systems to be more eco-friendly. It costs a lot of money. And this money could have been used either to funnel back into your business, to expand the business. It could have been used, like they say, to reduce the prices and make customers happy, and make customers want to come back. And that is obviously a negative because the money has to come from somewhere. Okay, CSI activities distract the business from its core business function. The main reason for any business, why we start a business, is to make a profit. So we need to do a specific job. We are a construction company. We need to be building things so that we can make money. If we are a grocery store, we need to be selling groceries so that we can make money. Are we taking time away from this core function and spending time in what does the community need? What can we give back to the community? And that does become a disadvantage. The next one here, it is difficult to accurately measure the effectiveness of the social investment, right? You're going into the communities and you're giving back, but you don't really know if the business has made a sustainable difference, right? You go in and you give maybe a food parcel, but tomorrow that same family that you gave a food parcel to goes hungry. So it's very difficult to see if you really did make a difference in that community. And then the last one here, it is not easy to determine the exact needs of the community, which may result in fruitless expenditure. of the CSR. You might be focusing on something and putting money and funneling money towards corporate social investment program for the community, and that specific issue that you are focusing on is not necessarily the issue that is facing that community. Okay, so what we've done now is we've looked at the advantages and the disadvantages for the business, right? I'm going to say again, because I love to repeat myself, I'm a teacher. If they ask you the impact, you can choose whether you want just advantages, just disadvantages, or a combination of the two. But if they ask you for the positive impact or the negative impact, you have to specifically look at the advantages for positive impact and then disadvantages for negative impact. Okay, so that is for the business. Now we move on to the impact of CSI on the communities, specifically looking at the positive thing for the communities. Now, obviously, the positives are very, very simple. You look at the type of investment that is given to the community, what did they invest in, and then how did the community benefit from that specific corporate social investment program. You know, if they came in and they built a school, obviously that's great for the education of that community. If they came in and they built a clinic or they supplied the clinic with much needed ARVs or medicine, then the health system of that community is going to benefit. So I've taken a couple of examples here. There are so many different examples that you can make use of. If we look here, the first one, socioeconomic issues are attended to, which will improve the welfare of the community. So if the community is battling with poverty, unemployment, illiteracy, HIV and AIDS, any of the socioeconomic issues that you can think of, by going into the community, you are alleviating, you are helping, you are attending to these socioeconomic issues, which means the community will benefit from that. Training opportunities in the community will increase the possibility of appointments of members of that community. Going into the community, giving skills, giving training means that that community member has a better chance. If they have the skills to be able to do something, they will have a better chance of getting a job. Not only getting a job, but you could also go into the community, recognize somebody that has potential and has great skills, and then hire them in your business, helping the community out. Third one here, implementing developmental programs in the community improves environmental skills of the community. Again, people being able to start their own business and helping other people who are living in poverty and unemployment by giving them a job. Provision of bursaries to encourage communities to improve their skills, again focusing on the education. The standard of living of the community will be uplifted and better educational facilities are established in poorer communities. You will see a lot of focus in our textbooks and the memos and stuff. A lot of focus is given to education, because if education and skills are better, people won't have as many socioeconomic issues, in the sense, before I get myself into trouble, in the sense that there's better chances of you getting a job. When you have a job, you're getting a salary, you won't be as desperate, it won't lead to so much crime in the country, you won't be living in poverty, we will not have the problem of unemployment. So that's what I mean when I say that. Okay, that's the advantages. Now, if we look at the disadvantages, again, I've also just chosen the first 6, so please look in your books. Businesses are not always equipped to address the social problem. Right? What do I, in my business, what do we know about HIV and AIDS? But now we're going to go into a community and solve this problem for them. Sometimes you just don't have the know-how and you're not equipped to be able to deal with the socioeconomic issues. Communities tend to become dependent on your CSR programs, and then they don't take initiative, they don't take responsibility for their own life. Like, oh, don't worry, I know somebody else will look after this problem for me, and then they don't look after the problem for themselves. Some businesses, unfortunately, and this is true, only participate in it for the commercial benefit. So while the cameras are rolling and their names are getting put in the papers, they're all big smiles, these corporations, and then when the cameras are not rolling anymore, they don't really care about the community themselves. They don't care about what they're actually doing and the difference that they're making. And again, before I get into trouble, I'm not talking about all businesses, we're saying some businesses. But they don't really care about the difference they're making. They They just care about the benefits that the business, all those benefits we went through, those benefits that they are getting. If we look at the next one, the benefits of the programs may not filter to the intended person within the community. Some people will take all the cream off of the top and leave very little for the people who actually need the help. Spending money on CSR programs means that the businesses has to recover those expenses in some other way. And most of the time, how a business is going to make up the money that they lost for giving back to the community, they're going to put up the prices so that they can make that money back, which ultimately hurts the consumers. And us consumers also come from communities as well. Okay, and then the last one here that I've chosen is that less money is available for the community projects during unfavorable economic conditions. Times are tough, businesses need to hold back their money to put it back into the business, to look after the employees of the business because they don't want to retrench ultimately. And we've seen that now with the corona, this pandemic, this COVID pandemic, that a lot of businesses cannot afford to give back to the community. They can barely look after the people that are in the businesses themselves. Okay, so this question, very important, the last 4 slides that I've done, it focuses on the impact of CSR on the business and then the impact of CSR on the community. Please, this is very important. Okay, now the next thing that we need to focus on is what is the difference between corporate social responsibility, corporate social investment. It's in your exam guidelines, and I have seen it asked in previous papers, in previous years. And for that reason, I've taken it specifically out of a exam memo so we can see exactly where your marks are allocated. Please remember, and now if you weren't listening to me before, listen to me now, right? Wait, hello, okay, right, you're listening. Please remember, when you are asked to differentiate, you don't have to put it in a table. But my recommendation is always put it in a table, right? If you don't have a ruler, draw a table. It doesn't say it has to be a straight table, but it should always be in a table for the simple reason. The distinction between the two must be clear. So if you just talk about what corporate social responsibility is on the one side and then randomly talk about corporate social investment, what will happen in the end of the year in your memos is we will only mark the one column because the distinction is not clear. So we will give you marks for talking about corporate social responsibility, for an example. But because the distinction, and the distinction is the difference between the two, is then not clear with the second one, we will not mark that second one. So you will only receive half the marks that you were intended to receive, which is throwing marks away. So obviously, if it says tabulate the difference and you do not put it in table, you get no marks. But if it just says differentiate or distinguish between the two, please, for your own benefit, put it in a table and make sure in the first block, if you are talking about A, then in the second block, you talk about the difference of A, B, and then the difference of B. So you make sure that you're talking about the same thing on the same line, but just the differences in the two columns. Okay, I've lectured you enough now. Let's get back to the theory here. Okay, so let's look at corporate social responsibility. It's the obligation, it's the concept, it's what, in a perfect world, how it should work. We give to you, you give back to us. I scratch your back, you scratch mine. So corporate social responsibility is great for everybody, where corporate social investment is actually giving back to the communities. It's not about what we can get back in return, it's about giving and helping the communities out. So if we look at the first block there, let me just get my torch again, or my sticker. Okay, if we look at the first block there, the intention is to change the business's practice, how we do things, make sure that we run our business according to the King's Code, where corporate social responsibility is actively committing money and resources to uplift the community. So on the one side, we're saying that we want to change the way business practices go and make sure that we run in the correct way and we keep the community and the environment in mind. And then the other one is saying, you know what, we're actually going to give money and resources. We're going to help the community and uplift the environment. Okay. Community and environment. The second one here, it focuses on the increasing image. So helping your image, And by helping your image, the better your image is, the more profit you're going to make, because people will obviously go to a business that is more well known. Okay. Whereas corporate social responsibility focuses on the upliftment of the community without a return on investment. They are giving back to the community to help the community. They are not now keeping in mind what might come back. Right? It could happen that you go into a community, you help the community out, and the community turns around and says, you know what, thank you so much, but I still can't afford to come and support your business because your products are just too expensive, or something like that could happen. So when it actually comes down to taking money out of your pocket, taking human resources away from the work that they do and going into the communities and giving something back, your focus is not going to be on the return on investment. Okay, ensure that all internal CSR policies, practices include all the stakeholders. Remember, a stakeholder is not a shareholder. A stakeholder is everybody who is involved in that business. So if you look at your school structure, then we say the stakeholders of the school includes the teachers, the learners, the parents, the SGB, right? All of the parties that are involved. So specifically, yeah, we're looking at, again, your triple bottom line. So they make sure that their practices and their policies help all the parties involved, the economic, the social, and the environment. Okay, whereas, sorry, the corporate social investment ensures that the projects are relevant to the needs of the customer, right? So they go into these communities and of the customer, listen to me, of the communities, right? They go into the communities, they see what does this community actually need, and then they make sure that they provide for those needs. If the community is battling specifically with poverty and unemployment, they go in and they help develop skills or something like that. If we look at corporate social responsibility, it's often intended as a marketing initiative. We go in, we give back to the communities, but in return, we are getting our name out there in the communities as well. For corporate social responsibility, it's intended to uplift the communities through social development. What do we need to help this community out, and then providing that. The last one, projects are usually linked to the business. Okay, I have given an example there, but basically, like for me, example, I am a teacher. So if I want to give back to the communities, then I can go into the communities and give extra lessons or free lessons to somebody who can't afford it. That will be linked to the business that I do, right? So you link it to the business that you have. KFC, for example, they have Adding Hope, which feeds people who don't have food. That's something linked to their business. Corporate social investment, these are projects that are external from the business and they have a very strong developmental approach. So look at what the needs of the community is, and then they will, from there, they will choose and structure their programs. Okay, right. I'm going to carry on with the next chapter, but just before I do that, I just want you to note a few things. I see I did not include some things that were included in your exam guidelines, so I'm going to list them now to you, and I want you to make note of them because you have to go back and study from your books because it could be asked, and I have seen these questions asked in previous years. The first one is the purpose of the CSR as well as the purpose of the corporate social investment. So please go back. Underneath the elaboration of the meaning, get a definition. Please also please also be able to discuss the purposes of those CSR and CSI. That's the first one. And I have seen it asked before. The second one is the components of the CSR. You only need to list these components. You do not need to be able to explain them. Again, it has been asked. I've seen it asked in previous years. It's normally asked right at the top. It's one of those questions that just a listing question or naming question. They'll say list 4 components of CSR for 4 marks. Okay. And then the third one, which is not as popular, I haven't really seen it asked very often, but it's in your exam guidelines. If it's in your exam guidelines, just because it hasn't been asked before doesn't mean it will not be asked again or will not be asked in the future. And that is the implications of certain laws. So the laws that I specifically want you to focus on here, the implications of them is the Employment Equity Act, Skills Development Act, triple BEE, and the National Skills Development Strategy. Those four, just the implications of them. But this is not new. This is not something that I need to explain to you, because you have done this in term one in absolute detail. So you don't even really, careful, Mrs. Erasmus, careful. I wanted to say you don't really need to study it here. You do need to study it, but you can really pull on the knowledge that you have from the first term's chapter on legislation. Okay, so those four acts, please remember: Employment Equity Act, Broad-Based Black Economic Empowerment Act, your Skills Development Act, and your National Skills Development Strategy. Okay, so those things: the purpose, the components, and the implications of those acts. I haven't included, but they are important for you to go back and study. Right. We are going to start now with the next chapter. The next chapter is based on human rights, inclusivity, and environmental issues. This chapter is a relatively new chapter. However, it's not very difficult, because it's stuff that you do deal with in business studies, like inclusivity, and we dealt with it with the laws as well. And you also cover it in life orientation, I know for a fact, and maybe some other subjects as well. So even though it's a bit of a new chapter, not difficult to understand, and the concept of relatively easy. Right, so let's get started on this one. Okay, so the first thing that we need to look at is the different human rights. Now, human rights is something that every human being is entitled to, and it's set out in the Bill of Rights. Now, there are a lot of different human rights that we need to know, but according to your exam guidelines, there are specific ones that you need to be able to identify technically from a case study, and then also to be able to describe or recommend ways that the business can deal or contribute to uphold these rights. Make sure that in the business itself, it respects these rights and upholds them. Right, so I have only put down the human rights on the slide that is in the exam guidelines that are specified in the exam guidelines. The first one is a human rights to privacy, right? Privacy is the first right that we're going to look at. Now, you don't need to know in business studies, be able to explain this right, anything like that. Just be able to name it, identify it from a case study, and if it is given to you, also then be able to discuss or describe ways that the business can uphold it. So when we look at privacy, I've just taken 2 or 3 from each one of these rights. Please, again, go back to your notes, go see, maybe these are not easy for you to remember. Maybe you want to choose different ones. That's really up to you. When it comes to privacy, things that the business can do to make sure that they uphold these rights: they should not provide personal information about their employees to anybody else. They can't give out your employees' personal telephone number or their HIV and AIDS status or anything like that, right? You're not allowed to share personal information of your employees. Information on employees who have disclosed their HIV status, I've actually just mentioned that, or any chronic illness must be kept confidential, especially if they ask you to keep it confidential. It is very much illegal to read people's emails or record conversations if you are not upfront about it, if people are not aware that that is the case. Okay, these are small things, quick 3 things that you can do. If we look at the next human right, is dignity, the human right to respect and dignity. How can the business maintain this or uphold this in the business? Make sure that you treat all employees with respect and dignity regarding their socioeconomic status. You should not force workers to do anything embarrassing. And yeah, I just took those 2. I didn't think, you'll see even in your books, there's not a lot of different options there, but it just comes down to the business must make sure that they have a work culture of respect and no discrimination, and make sure that you treat everybody like human beings, right? Not like slaves. Okay, the next human right is the right to equity. Equity means equal. Everybody is seen as equal. What can the business do to make sure that there is equity in the workplace? This right is upheld in the workplace. They can do things like, let's look at that first one there. Businesses must give equal opportunity and not discriminate against employees on any basis, right? There I've just put in a few examples: race, gender, religion, sexual orientation. There should be no discrimination based on anything, any differences in people. The second thing that a business can do, equal pay for equal work. If I do exactly the same work as you do and we're in the same business, we should get the same pay. A male shouldn't get paid more than a female, for example. Why? If you're doing the same work, is one person paid more than the other? And then also managers should ensure that no employees suffer because of any kind of discrimination, right? So make sure that there is no discrimination within your workplace. Okay, these are the first three. I'm going to carry on in the next slide, but please make sure you write these ones down because, like I said, these are important to know for your exam guidelines. Okay, on the next page, you will see we're carrying on. The next human right that we have is the right to freedom and expression, freedom of expression. What can the business do to make sure that this is upheld? Businesses should allow for open communication channels between managers and employees, so there should be two-way communication. They should give employees platforms to raise any grievances without victimization or discrimination. So if you don't agree with something that the business is doing, you should have the right to state you don't agree with it without them taking action against you. And the last one there, an employee should not be punished or discriminated against for voicing their opinions. They're allowed the right to their opinions. The next human right is the right to information. What can the business do to make sure that this is upheld? They need to be transparent with their financial statements. Employees are allowed to request to see the statements if they have a good motivation for doing so. And employees should be informed or updated if any new information becomes available, especially information that will affect how they do their job and so on. They should be made aware of this and told about it. And then the right to safety, security, protection, and life. This one, what can the business do? Employees must work in a safe working environment that is free from hazards. So if the employer knows that something is very dangerous, they should have, we're going to look at it later in this chapter actually, but they should have supervisors there, they should have signs, they should try and eliminate or at least minimize any hazards in the workplace. The business should provide workers with protective clothing, gloves and footwear, hard hats, so on. And employees should take precautionary measures to ensure that the employees and their belongings are safe in the workplace. So like I said, if there's hazardous, try and eliminate them or minimize them. Have a space where people can keep their possessions safely locked away. Small little things like that. By doing these things, the business is respecting and looking after the rights, the basic human rights of their employees that work for them. Okay. Those were the only, by the way, let's quickly just go back. Those were the 6 that I was talking about. So you will see in your textbooks, there is a list and a list and a list of different human rights. You're welcome, obviously, to go through them, but these are the 6 that I want you to be able to identify from the case study, and these are the 6 that I want you to be able to give me examples of how the business can maintain these rights. Okay. Right, the next thing that we need to cover from your exam guidelines is the economic rights of your employees. Very, very popular question in recent years. I've seen it come up quite a bit. These rights, I'm going to give you a whole list of them now, but please make sure you understand these rights. You'll be able to explain because it's a discussed question. Okay. You need to be free from forced labor. Make sure that there's no slavery. You're not being forced to do things, especially that's not in your working contract. You must be free to accept and choose work. Right? If you want the promotion, you want to turn it down, you want to go to a different job and do a different job, it is your right to choose what you want to do in order to earn a salary. Okay. Obviously, you can't now, when I say choose what you want to do, you can't walk into a workplace and then demand the CEO position, but you have the right to choose whether you want to take the job, don't take the job, and what you want to do with your life. Okay. Next one, you have the right to fair wages and equal pay. Equal pay for equal work. We did discuss this now as a basic human right, but this also falls under an economic right as well in the workplace, your economic right. Obviously, we have in the Basic Conditions of Employment Act, which we covered in first term, we have got laws governing minimum wages, but you should be paid a fair wage for the amount of money that the business makes. Right? They should pay you fairly and make sure that there's no discrimination between different parties who are doing the same work where you're not paying them the same. Reasonable limitation of working hours. We know from the Basic Conditions of Employment Act, it's 45 hours per week, and then you get a certain amount of overtime that you're allowed. But if they're making you work 24 hours straight without any breaks, if you have to work 7 days a week and you don't get any days off, then obviously that amounts to slavery, which is against our basic human rights. The right to safe and healthy working environment. Obviously, some jobs are going to be more dangerous than others, right? Miners going underneath the ground, their job is really, really dangerous compared to me as a school teacher, for example. So even though some jobs are more dangerous than others, you still must make sure, the business must make sure that they provide for your health and safety. Again, we did cover this, the human rights to life and protection. That's the last one on the last slide. But it also falls under your economic. You have the right to join a trade union or to form a trade union, and this is called freedom of association. Now, this is not one of the human rights that the exam guideline has said that you need to be able to identify, so we didn't really go through it, but please just remember that freedom of association. Sometimes they like to use that in place of trade unions, but specifically in the workplace, freedom of association, we can choose who we want to be with and to make friends with and stuff like that. That's our basic human right. In the workplace, this basically connects with your right to join a trade union of your choice. And then obviously the right to participate in a legal strike. So if there's a legal strike, your boss can't tell you, no, you can't partake in the strike. I'm going to fire you if you do. That is obviously now against your economic rights. Okay, very important. Please take note of this. It has been asked. Okay, then the next two, again, we get a lot of these questions where they can ask this question for one party or another with the corporate social responsibility, the well-being of the community, and looking after the well-being of the employees. Similar type of thing now. We're going to look at what the business can do to promote social rights in the business, and then we're also going to look at what the business can do to promote cultural rights in the business. So again, we just things that the business will be able to put into practice to show that they support the rights that you have, different types of rights you have. So what will the business do? I just took the first four. You guys can choose any of your choice. The first one there, let me just get my torch for you guys, or my sticker, whatever it is. To encourage employees or provide opportunities for skills, training, and basic education. One of the social problems that we have in our country is unemployment, lack of skills, illiteracy, poverty. These are all linked, and crime even, because when people live in poverty, they're desperate and then they resort to a life of crime to bring in some money. So there's a big connection between these social problems, and how can a business help and make sure that these social rights are not a problem, and they can encourage employees to get extra skills to try and better their education, and so on. The next one, you should register your workers with UIF to provide adequate protection if they lose their jobs and become unemployed. We have done this in previous chapters, but if they lose their jobs and become unemployed, unemployment is a social problem again, and this will then obviously protect them for up to 6 months that they are unemployed. And businesses can encourage employees to participate in special events like Women's Day, which just passed, World AIDS Day is the example here. There's many different activities that we can partake in, which will pertain to our social rights. And then the last one, you can provide healthcare services by establishing site clinics, especially in your very dangerous jobs, like your mining industry. And this will give employees access to basic medical examinations. And this would be one of the ways of promoting your social rights, specifically now to life, right? To have a healthy life. These are really just 4 of them. Please go and check, go look in your books and your notes and stuff. There are a whole bunch that you can choose from. Make sure that you are prepared. Okay, so I'm still getting used to the system. Okay, then the next one, same question, just a different party. So the party here is, or not party, different rights. The first one was your social right. Now we're going to look specifically at your cultural right. What can the business do to promote your cultural right in the business? And remember, we have a thing, and we're going to talk about it in a minute. Diversity, we must have different people, different cultures, different ages, different genders. We must include everybody in our business. But people from different cultures have different beliefs. So what is the business going to do to make sure that they promote cultural rights where there's no discrimination against different cultures and different beliefs? Okay, firstly, you can do the first bullet there. Provide the environment in which the employees are free to use their own language when interacting with others during their free time. It's time to say, you know what, this business we use specifically English, or at this school is an English medium school. When we're doing business, we have to speak English. But if it's your free time, it's during break, it's during your break time at work, then you should be free to speak a language of your choice without being discriminated against. Encourage employees to participate in cultural activities like a public holiday, Heritage Day, and so on. Allow employees to provide solutions to challenges from their own cultural perspective. This is very good for a business to do, because you could say, you know what, in my culture, this is how we deal with this problem. And you could possibly come up with a solution to a challenge that you had never thought of before. So it can really be to your benefit. And then employ people from various cultural backgrounds to make sure that you have a diverse workforce, and people can see that you are accepting, or the business is accepting of different cultures, and that you support cultural rights. Okay. Oh, sorry. Right. The next one, let me just see it. Yes. Okay. The next one is the implications of quality, respect, and dignity on the business. And this is just a very straightforward theoretical question. It is in your exam guidelines, which is why I have included it in the slides here, but there's really nothing funny. It just means implications. What effect does this have? What does it imply that the business has to do? Or what effect does it have for the business if you have equality, respect, and dignity in the business? Okay, let's quickly take a look then. Businesses should treat all employees equally, regardless of their race, age, gender, disability. And when I say etc., I mean etc. There are so many different variables here. All workers should have access to equal opportunities, positions, and resources. They can't say to you, no, you mustn't apply for the promotion. You're not good enough to get it. Everyone has a right to apply. Everyone has a right to equal opportunities in the workplace. Employers and employees need to comply with legislation with regard to equal opportunities, human rights in the workplace. So specifically that I can think off the top of my head, your Employment Equity Act, which includes the Policy of Affirmative Action, or Triple BEE, Skills Development Act. These are all in place there to promote equality and equal opportunities. Businesses should develop equity programs or promote strategies to ensure that all employees are treated equally, regardless of their status, rank, and power. And then the mission statement should include values of equality and respect. It should be sewn into the culture of your business. Remember, in grade 10 we spoke about the business's culture. It should be embedded in your business's culture that we have equality, respect, we respect each other's cultures, there's no discrimination, and so on. Okay. Right, then diversity issues and ways that we can deal with these diversity issues. Very popular question, what they can do with these diversity issues. And when they say diversity issues, we are talking basically the different grounds of discrimination. Okay? We don't say what's the different types of discrimination. We talk about diversity issues, but ultimately that is what we are asking. So there are certain ones, again, diversity issues that you have to be able to identify from a case study, and then you also have to be able to tell me what can the business do to deal with these diversity issues so that they are not a problem in the business, so that there is no discrimination in the business. Okay, the first one is poverty. What they like to do is they give you a case study, and in the case study they'll mention somewhere, for example, that there are more males higher than females, right? And then they'll say, what is the diversity issue discussed in the case study? Then you must know it's age, because they're discriminating against. Listen to me, gender, because they're discriminating against based on gender. There's more males than females, for example. So note that they could ask in a case study form for you to identify, but the next question that they're normally going to ask, if they don't give it to you and they make you identify it, the follow-up question will normally be, what can the business do to deal or to make sure that this is not a problem in their business? Okay, let's look at poverty. What can the business do here when it comes to poverty? They can, let me just get that. Businesses should employ people from different socioeconomic backgrounds, poor people, rich people. There should be a diversity of different people from different, I want to say classes, but you know what I mean, monetary backgrounds, socioeconomic backgrounds. Okay. Train all employees so that they can be able to deal with retrenchments. When they mean that, what they mean by that is train your employees, give them the skills so that if something bad happens, like this coronavirus, and they've lost their jobs, that they have the skills and the know-how either to start their own business or to be able to get another job. Right. Ensure that the prices of products are affordable for the identified consumer market. Don't try and take advantage of your customers. Your customers are dealing with issues like poverty. They're trying to feed their families. So try and keep the prices of your product reasonable so that everyone can afford, so that poverty, they're not discriminated against based on poverty. Okay, then when it comes to race, as a diversity issue, what can the business do to try and deal with this problem of this diversity issue, race? They can implement affirmative action policy, which is required by law. Remember, affirmative action is when you give preference to previously disadvantaged individuals when hiring and promoting in the workplace. You can comply with the Employment Equity Act and BBBEE. Remember, Employment Equity Act regulates affirmative action. The Employment Equity Act stands for the whole act is basically structured around the fact that there should be no discrimination in the workplace. And then you should ensure that the workplace is diverse by employing people from different race groups. We're talking specifically now about race, but remember, race, age, gender, poverty, all of these things, we should have a diverse workforce. My tongue is getting twisted. Okay, the other issues, gender. Okay, this is actually quite a popular one when it comes to case studies. They like to ask gender and age specifically. Gender, what can the business do? Males and females should be offered equal employment opportunities. Business directors should promote both men and women. So if there's a promotion position, look at the men and women who's best suited for the job. And then women should be employed to comply with the Employment Equity Act. Remember, Employment Equity Act regulates affirmative action, which gives preference to previously disadvantaged individuals when hiring and promoting. And also remember, from first term now, women are seen as previously disadvantaged because of many, many years ago when women didn't have the same rights as what men did. Okay, language as a diversity issue. What can you do? You can provide training in official language of the business. You can employ an interpreter so that everyone can fully understand what is being said in meetings, especially if you're having a meeting with a diverse group with different languages. You maybe have an international company where you deal with people from different countries who speak different languages and so on. And then all businesses' contracts must be in an easy to understand language. So if it is in English, don't try and use hard words to confuse everybody. And then they also talk here about it being available in languages of your choice as well. Okay, when it comes to age, what can you do about the diversity issue of age in a business? Your promotion should not be linked to age, but rather to a specific set of skills. You shouldn't say, oh no, that person's too young, they haven't got enough experience, I can't promote them, and then only promote the older people. You should really look at what is needed in this promotion position, who has the best skills to be able to do that. A business may not employ children under the age of 15. Make sure you don't have underage people working. And then the ages of your permanent workers should vary between the ages of 18 and 65. You don't want just old people working in your business. Old people bring a lot of old people. It sounds so terrible. Sounds like I'm discriminating. But older people who have been in the business for a long time, don't underestimate them. They bring in experience, know-how, they can mentor you, they can tell you how it really is. You come out of varsity, you think you know everything, and then when you actually get down to it and do the real work, the real world work, you'll see it's actually a lot more tougher. It's not as they said it was going to be in the textbooks. So you'll learn a lot. The experience and the know-how of an older, more experienced employee, vital for a business. But don't underestimate what a young employee can bring in, because a young employee brings in new ideas, technology, adaptation to the changing world. So if you have a variety of ages, the well-experienced know-how, right, and you have the person who adapts to change, knows technology, brings in new, fresh ideas, then you have everything. But if you only have one group or the other group, you're going to fall flat. Okay, right. The last three, the diversity issue of religion and culture, people being discriminated against based on their religion or their culture. What can business do? They must be sensitive to special requests from different cultural groups. For example, certain holidays, being given time off for certain holidays. You can't say to somebody, okay, because you're a Christian, you get Christmas off, but because you are a different culture where your Christmas falls in a different time period, you can't. Right? That would be unfair. Also consider certain dress wear from different cultures on certain days, on certain times of their life. They have to wear certain clothing or their hair a certain way. Be sensitive towards this. Cater special foods and preparation methods in your workers' canteen, or if you have a staff function and somebody doesn't eat pork because of their religious belief, maybe you should have a different option on the menu for those specific people. And then you must respect cultural differences of all your employees. Okay, when it comes to disability or physically challenged people, what can you do for this diversity issue? Businesses should provide employment opportunities for people who are physically challenged. Don't only look at their disability, look at what they can do, not what they can't. Accommodate people who are physically challenged by providing facilities like ramps and wheelchairs and elevators and so on, and ensure that the workers with special needs are not marginalized or excluded because of their disability. Try your very best to include them, maybe in a different way, but try your very best to include them. And then inequality is the last one. Inequality means we are not all equal. There's discrimination within the business. What can the business do? They can implement equal opportunity policies when appointing staff, like your affirmative action. Equal opportunities should be considered while promoting your staff, again, affirmative action, and you must implement your employment equity plan in the business. As with these diversity issues, identify them, discuss what the business can do. There are a lot more than just the ones that I've put here. Please go back to your books and see what extras that you can come up. Okay, the benefits of diversity in the workplace, again, is in your exam guidelines, so I want you to include it, but I don't want to spend too much time on it because it's a plain theoretical, it's not really explaining work. Let's look at that quickly. The first one there, the workforce diversity improves the ability of the business to solve problems because they're getting people from different cultures, different backgrounds, there's lots of different age groups and so on, and between everybody's differences, we might be able to come up with ways of solving a problem that we didn't think of. Employees must value each other's diversity and learn to connect or communicate across lines of differences. We start to overcome by being forced to work with people that are different from you, whether it be age, race, gender, whatever, disability. We become more accepting, right? If we are forced to accept, then later on we realize, oh, just because this person has a disability, doesn't mean that they can do their job better than I can in some cases. Yeah. Diversity in the workforce improves morale and motivation because people feel accepted, they feel like they belong. Employees demonstrate greater loyalty to the business because, again, they feel respected, accepted, they feel understood. And then diversified workforce can give businesses a competitive advantage, come up with different ideas of making more money, and this can render better services, meaning that you will have better profits ultimately as well. Okay. Okay, then explain the responsibilities of there's different. We're moving on to the environmental. Remember I said it's human rights, inclusivity, and environmental protection. So there are 4 questions here that could come up when it comes to the environmental protection. And the question is, what are the responsibilities or the roles of these different parties in the workplace when it comes to human health and safety? So the first one we're going to look at is, what's the employer, the owner, the boss? What's his role when it comes to safety of the employees? What does he have to do? What's his responsibilities? Again, I've just taken a couple here, but let's quickly look at them. You can provide and maintain all equipment that is necessary to perform the work, fire extinguishers, and all your equipment that is needed to get the job done safely. You have to provide all of that. Keep the systems to ensure that there will not be harmful impact on the health. There's a system in place. When you come in, you have to have, and just think now with the coronavirus, when you go into a shop or when you go to school, when you walk in, there's a certain procedure you have to go to that is there to maintain your health. So as an employer, you must put these procedures in place so that you are protecting the health of your workers. You should reduce or remove dangers to the workers and provide personal protective clothing gear. Remember, it is the employer's responsibility to provide the protective clothing. A lot of learners last year, the question was, what is the responsibility of a health and safety representative? And a lot of learners says they have to provide protective gear. Not the case. The employer is responsible to provide the protective gear. Ensure that workers' health is not damaged by hazards resulting from production, processing, storage, transportation, anything to do with the business activities. And then employers must know where the potential dangers are and take measures to try and eliminate those dangers, or at least limit them. Put supervisors in place, put signs up, wet floors, hazard lights if there's a hole in the ground, something like that. Okay. The next one, and this was the one that was asked last year in September and again in November, so it's very relevant, is the role of a health and safety representative. Now, what is a health and safety representative? That is there in bold, our first bullet. Health and safety representatives are elected by co-workers to act on behalf in resolving health and safety issues in the workplace. So it's somebody who works at your job, at your workplace, and they are elected to look after the health and safety of the workplace and the employees. Okay, what is their role and responsibility? Like I said, this was asked last year. You need to identify potential dangers in the workplace, walk around. If you see there's a broken window and glass sticking out, it's your responsibility to note that, take care of it so that it's not a danger to the employees. Review measures to ensure that the health and safety of workers. We had, for example, in schools, we had measures in place for health and safety, and then when the coronavirus hit, then all of those measures became outdated and we had to come up with new ones. So you're constantly looking at the processes that the employer has to put in place. You're looking at those processes and you're seeing, can we make it better, make it more safer, and so on. Ensure that all equipment that is necessary to perform the work are provided and maintained so that they don't break down and hurt people in the process. You need to promote safety training, fire safety. What do you do if there's a fire? All safety training, how to work with certain equipment without getting injured. And then ensure that dangerous equipment is under the supervision of trained and qualified workers. That's why on your job sites, your building sites and stuff, you'll always have a supervisor in charge. That person's trained. Make sure that everyone's doing their jobs correctly, they're wearing their gear so that they don't get injured. Okay, and then the last party that you need to know is the responsibilities of the workers themselves and the employees when it comes to protecting or promoting health and safety in the business. So even though the owner has to provide the safety gear, the health and safety representative has to make sure you're wearing your gear, you also as an employee have a responsibility in the business to ensure your own health and safety. What are things that you need to look at? Workers should take care of their own health and safety in the workplace. They should cooperate and comply with rules and procedures. So if you know that when you come in, you have to sanitize your hands and you have to wipe your desk down. I don't know what your procedures are. That if that is the procedure, that you follow that procedure. You can't break the rules and then if you get injured, still want to blame the business if you broke the rules. Okay. On number 3 now. Report unsafe or unhealthy working conditions to the relevant authorities. It might happen that you see the broken window and the health and safety representative didn't. It's then your responsibility to go and report that. Report accidents to the employer by the end of the shift. If you do get injured at workplace, make sure people know about it so that they can avoid other people getting injured. They can see if this is a dangerous situation and so on. And then use your prescribed safety equipment. If you have to wear a hard hat, make sure that you wear your hard hat. That is there for a reason, to protect you. Okay, now the last question that they could possibly ask you under environmental issues is recommend or suggest strategies that the business can use or may use to protect the environment and human health. Okay, I've only put down things here based on the environment because I think in the last 3 slides where we talked about what the parties can do for human health, you could possibly fall back on that. But you could actually, because they ask it environment and human health, you could actually just answer environment as well. You'll go back to your books, you'll see there's a lot of different options there. Okay, let's look at this. The first one, laws and regulations should be adhered to so that profit is not generated at the expense of the environment, right? Conservation laws and stuff like that. Make sure that you follow the laws, you're not harming the environment. You should become involved in environmental awareness programs so you know what to do and what not to do in the business. The environment can be protected by altering production techniques in favor of a cleaner and greener technology. So going more eco-friendly in the production of products. It's a little bit more expensive, but at least you know you are sustaining the environment for future generations. Water for human consumption should be tested before it's used so that people don't get sick. That could possibly be for human health as well. Promote nature conservation by looking after your natural resources. Try and minimize your use. Don't use as many natural resources. And then minimize pollution by reusing, reducing, recycling. Just making things, resources used from our environment last a little bit longer. Okay, right. I know I've said a lot of things and we've gone through quite a bit of information here. Please remember with CSR and CSI, those 3 things that I did not include that are in your exam guidelines. And good luck with studying. And I will see you again in the next video. I hope it helped.